For basically all of my life, I've been a Nintendo fan, and that's plainly obvious looking at my channel. But little known fact, my first console was actually a PlayStation, and I'd later go on to have Nintendo consoles, but I did get a PS2 at some point down the line. And I have to admit, both consoles had a lot of great games. And while I think Sony has sort of fallen off in terms of what they're offering in recent years, those two consoles definitely have a special place in my heart. And today I'm going to take a look at a game I actually missed out on growing up. Thanks to you guys voting for it on this poll, I now have an excuse to actually play this game and not let it just sit on my shelf.
So I guess we'll start off with the story like I always do, and in true platformer fashion, there really isn't much of a story, unfortunately. That's a good or a bad thing depending on how you look at it. I personally don't really mind. This game has the illusion of a somewhat coherent plot, but under further inspection, it's literally just there to kind of give a reason for the adventure to happen. Which is fine, it's a goddamn platform. If I want to play something with a deep and complex plot, I'll play a JRPG. But regardless, I'll go over key plot points and bring you guys up to speed. The game opens with Jak and Daxter venturing to Misty Island, which results in them running into and eavesdropping in on a secret meeting. Troubled by what they're seeing, they decide to leave, but a lurker finds out they were listening in. But it's easily taken care of by Jak. Unfortunately, Daxter is sent flying into a pool of dark eco during the scuffle, which transforms him into an Otzel. They go to see the Sage of Green Eco, Samos, and are told that Gol Acheron is the only one who can help change Daxter back. After a bit of exploring, they discover that the evil dude who is speaking at the meeting is Gol, and he's been tainted and almost possessed after messing with some dark eco. At some point, Gol captures all of the sages, Jak then frees them and then fights and beats Gol, and the day is saved. Again, a very simple plot, but that's definitely not a bad thing. A lot of people like to pretend like Jak and Daxter is some huge step forward in storytelling when compared to the Crash Bandicoot trilogy, Naughty Dog's last outing. And while that is true, let's be real, there are kids' books with more complex plots than both of these games combined. The Crash Bandicoot to Jak and Daxter transition is basically the same as Mario 64 to Mario Sunshine, at least plot-wise.
But regardless, moving on from the story, let's take a look at the gameplay, arguably the most important part of a platformer. Now before talking about the actual controls, I have something else I have to mention, and that's the load times. Why the loading times, you ask? Well, it's because there are no loading times. This was very impressive for the time, and it still kind of is. And I had to mention this not only because it's impressive, but because Jak and Daxter fans never shut the fuck up about it. It's like One Piece fans asking you to watch One Piece.
Play Jak and Daxter, bro. There's no load times, bro. I swear, it gets good when you reach the final boss, bro. But in all seriousness, the lack of load times are great and can really help with the immersion. The fluidity of the gameplay is partially in depth to these load times, or I guess lack thereof. Speaking of the fluidity of the gameplay is great and, well, fluid. The controls can take a while to get used to, and it's easy to mistake them for being slippery or sloppy controls. But don't be fooled, the controls are pretty smooth. Are they perfect? No, of course not. But if you ask me, they were great at the time and still hold up really well. Usually when you fuck up in Jak and Daxter, it's your fault, which is great. In any great or even competent platformer, the controls should not be working against you unless it's by design. And I'm glad to say that the platforming in this game is good. It was something that I was kind of concerned about going into this game. Like I said, the controls are really smooth and responsive, and only occasionally, if ever, over-responsive. There are vehicle sections and other minigame-like sections in the game that help break up the formula a little, and they also control really well, but they can border on being really easy sometimes. But that's not to say the controls make the rest of this game easy by any means. Your platforming chops are really tested, because if you miss a platform by a pubic hair, you're falling so far down that bottomless pit, your save file is deleting itself. And while I just said the vehicle and minigame sections can be easy, if you're not ready to take them on, they can provide a decent challenge, and will be annoying and hard to beat if you don't figure out what you have to do quick.
That being said, I believe the difficulty to be just right. It's easy enough for a kid to play, but also challenging enough to keep an adult interested.
This game punishes impatience and rewards the learning of level layouts and skillful platforming. If your platforming chops are there, you should have no problem with most of the game. The latter half of the game will ramp up the difficulty a tad, but nothing that's really unmanageable or anything.
Also, speaking of the level layout, let's talk about the level design. In a platformer, the controls could be perfect, but if I'm having to traverse a labyrinth, I'm not going to be having any fun. And I'm happy to say that the level design is really good. If not excellent, in fact.
You can get lost sometimes or just not know how to progress, but on repeat playthroughs, it isn't really a problem, obviously. The areas in this open world are great. You have a nice variety of areas, some of which fit into tropes and some of which are kinda unique.
I'm talking things from swamp areas to whole lost cities. There's something here for everyone.
My only real complaint about these areas is that some of them can be really dark and drab, or just boring to look at. But some of these environments having such a dark look to them could just be a product of the overall vibe of the game. The game is quite obviously going for a very ancient and historic theme in a sense, with a lot of rural locales sprinkled throughout, and it does shine through in the level design a lot. Hey, it's Editing Hunter. This next segment of this video, I left in because it's definitely how I feel about the game to an extent, but I understand if the next part of the video makes no sense at all to a lot of the viewers. Like I do say at the end, it's more my observations and personal feelings and experiences of the game being expressed, rather than, you know, me trying to form some sort of, like, weird criticism. If I was the type of reviewer to give ratings, and say I gave Jak and Daxter a 7 out of 10, regardless if I felt this way or not, it would still be a 7 out of 10, or whatever rating I would have given it. I realise this whole segment and argument may sound extremely dumb to some of you, and that's fine, but I kind of thought as though I should maybe express my, certain feelings, certain feelings that I have about the game, and be real with you guys about what I think, because, well, it's how I feel, and I feel like this channel is about being real and giving real opinions about video games and not sugarcoating stuff. So yeah, just keep that in mind going into this next segment.
Now, time for some criticism that's probably going to sound somewhat contradictory, but try and stay with me on this one as I try my best to explain it. While this game is definitely not generic, to me, sometimes it lacks a certain level of personality. Past the opening cutscenes, I feel this game, at least in terms of story and character interactions, loses a lot of its charm and character. The game doesn't feel like its own unique thing a lot of the time, at least not to me. Let's take a look at a game that Jak and Daxter is oftentimes compared to, is contemporary Ratchet and Clank. And before I go any further with this Ratchet comparison, I should preface this by saying I am a massive Ratchet fanboy, so take what I say with a grain of salt.
With the Ratchet and Clank games, even if you're solely looking at the first entry, the game hits you in the face with the force of 1,000 suns in terms of personality and charm. Even ignoring the character interactions, all of the levels and side things to do are fucking phenomenal and add to the game and its charm. Not to say that all of the side content and deviations from the platforming in Jak and Daxter don't add to the game, but something just feels missing from the game. It's very hard for me to say what. I can compare it to most platformers and a lot of the things are in check, but when I look at what makes a Mario, a Sonic, a Crash, or a Spyro great, I see it.
But with Jak 1, I don't really see that. I see a solid, if not great, platformer, but I don't see a lot of charm or personality. And if you want to argue a case for Daxter, save your fucking breath. He's the worst fucking part of the game. Jesus Christ. The platforming segments and ideas presented in this game, while obviously derivative, are quite unique and creative. And I know that sounds kind of contradictory, but I feel a game can be derivative of predecessors and contemporaries and still be unique. But unique segments in this game feel few and far between to me. And again, I'm not entirely sure why.
And because of that, when I beat this game, I felt like I beat the game. I didn't feel like I saved the world. I felt like, hey, I just saved a bunch of cardboard cut-out characters in this video game. Cool. On to the next video game. I felt no connection to the characters or the world. I love traversing the world, but I didn't feel any connection there.
And that's really unfortunate because this game did everything else near perfectly. But after this game being hyped up to me so much, I did expect to feel some level of accomplishment after beating the game. And for what is basically a standalone title, because with the advent of Jak 2, the franchise became something completely different, I was expecting this game to be able to stand on its own. But I was disappointed, and that's really unfortunate. Which it does, of course, at least in a sense, but by the end it feels forgettable. The only thing really drawing me back and making me want to play the game again is the near perfect gameplay. And with all of that being said, I must stress that none of that really changed my opinion on the game. I really had a lot of fun and I do intend to come back to the game in the future. I feel like this was just me expressing my thoughts and feelings about being disappointed by the game more than anything. And I've been ranting about characters, but I'll admit, they're not horrible.
The NPCs always have a humorous tone to them, which is pretty cool, but I'll be honest, it can get old after a while. Unfortunately, a lot of the humour in this game does miss the mark, but luckily the jokes don't linger oftentimes, making it easy for you just to skip over them. But I'll be honest, I'd rather have humour that usually misses the mark than have completely boring and lifeless characters. And these NPCs actually serve to give this game even more of that fluidity that I was on about earlier.
You see, progression in Jak is very permissive and lenient, allowing the player to go at whatever pace they want and do whatever they want. And while many would use the word leniency as a pejorative, I think the execution of said leniency is near perfect, and I couldn't say a bad word about it.
If you want to go around collecting as many Precursor orbs as you can before starting a single mission, you can go right ahead. If you want to complete everything in order, you can do that too. The game has a level of open-endedness to it which I love. It was another thing that was quite novel at the time, much like the lack of any noticeable load times. And for all of my dick sucking of the Ratchet games, I could genuinely see an argument for Jak 1's approach to leniency and freedom being better than that of Ratchet's. Oh, and how could I forget about the graphics and sound? While the art style isn't my favourite, I think it's used extremely well and it fits the game. When you're not in a drab or boring area, the colour and scenery really pops and is pleasing to the eye. The animations and character expressions are pretty smooth too, and are a treat to look at. As for the sound, I'll be honest, I could take it or leave it. There are definitely some great tracks here, but nothing that really sticks out to me as being incredible.
Despite my admittedly dumb criticisms of the game, if you can even call them criticisms, this is definitely a game I'd recommend. If you're looking for a platformer with great controls and that's a fun and short adventure, this is definitely up your alley and won't disappoint. Anyway guys, that's enough out of me. I've been XYZCruncher, I hope you enjoyed. If you did, please feel free to leave a like, subscribe, share, do all that good shit. It helps me get that one step closer to being able to do this as a job, which is ultimately what I want. I always say that, but honestly it does, and it's something I really want to do. Some important health updates. I've not actually really, I don't think I've talked much about my health in videos ever. Maybe my mental health occasionally, but as of recent I've been having I've been having a little bout with sciatica, which is basically a problem with the biggest nerve in your body. It's basically from your lower spine down to your foot, and I've got like a proper shooting, like pins and needles like pain, shooting from like basically where my left butt cheek is all the way down to my foot, and it like really fucking hurts. It's actually acting up as I speak, and it is quite painful. I always have to fight it back while, you know, making the videos, but I just enjoy doing it too much to, you know, give up because of some little ailment. And I'm not trying to like fish for sympathy, I just thought I should give an update and like maybe give somewhat of an explanation for maybe spotty uploads, or like uploads that aren't on time or whatever, if you guys are expecting uploads at a certain schedule. This is quite a serious thing for me, and it is quite painful, and it's something that I have to fight off a lot, and it can affect like my video making capacity, but it's not permanent. It can be fought off, but it can possibly be permanent. But I think mine's just temporary, so I have got to focus on getting better in terms of that, doing exercises and stretches and stuff like that, just going for walks, which gives me a little less time than I usually would, but it's helpful because I'm being active and going outside for a change. But yeah, hopefully it won't affect my ability to make videos too much, and if it does, I'll probably leave some updates on my Twitter or Instagram. I'll leave the ads here, or I'll just leave links in the description if you want to go follow me. Feel free. I just post art and just like talk random shit on Twitter like a retard, so feel free to go check me out on there. I hope this fucking video isn't too controversial, because those criticisms were very, very odd, but yeah, we're almost at 200 subs. I was gonna, I don't think I actually put the tweet out, but like I said, if we get to 200 subs, I'll do a Q&A. So if you're new and you do want to see a Q&A, feel free to subscribe. And yeah, we'll just do a Q&A video. I'll like make a video where you guys can leave like Q&A, you know, comments, just leaving questions. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Sorry for the long-winded outro, but I had to give an important health update. So yeah, but as a consolation, if you sat all the way through this, here's a little teaser for the next review. And before that, I'll probably be uploading a rant. But anyway, I've been XYZCruncher. Stay cool, stay safe, stay crunchy. I'm out. Peace. Enjoy the teaser.
Let me guess, Tiny. A small salad?
I'll have 2 number 9s, a number 9 large, a number 6 with extra dip, a number 7, 2 number 45s, 1 with cheese, and a large soda.
We serve food here, sir.